The NBA can offer you a world unlike any other profession, due to the levels you must reach to make it there. But after one miserable game, these players were never the same, starting with J.R. Smith, where you all know what happens. Yes, we're talking about that. Going into the 2018 NBA Finals, this was like the worst finale to a TV show ever. The Warriors and Cavs were the rivalry of the decade with 4 consecutive Finals matchups, the last of which was easily the biggest snooze fest of them all. After Golden State gave Cleveland the belt to ass in 2017, this Cavs team was quite a bit worse after having lost Kyrie Irving in a trade to Boston. The Cavs had no chance in hell to win this series, but at the end of Game 1, it looked like the Cavaliers had a chance to shock the world. The two were neck and neck the whole game, coming down to late game free throws with George Hill at the line. After Kevin Durant completely whiffed a box out, J.R. Smith with an abnormal 6 rebounds had just grabbed the biggest board of his life and gave himself an easy look at the basket for the game. Until, what in the world was J.R. thinking?
Cavs, J.R. Smith brings it back out, throws it to Hill. Hill shot blocked. And we'll go to overtime. You get the feeling J.R. Smith thought they had the lead. He didn't know the...
Well, to this day we don't exactly know. He's claimed his reasoning as he thought the Cavs were up in his initial response, which could very well be the reason, but possibly after some of the pushback he got from the brain lapse, his story changed. Later, he claimed he thought the Cavs were going to call a timeout because he wasn't in a position to score with KD protecting the rim. I mean, maybe he was wanting to shift the blame away from himself, which I couldn't even blame him for if true, because the volume of hate and mockery he was receiving was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this was being labeled the biggest mess up in finals history, which isn't much of an exaggeration. After that, JR stated he thought the Warriors were going to foul him. Really, I don't know exactly what was going through his head. If I had to guess, I really don't think this dude knew the score. Just knowing the Henny God's game, he has no problem shooting the ball, that's for sure. But regardless, in terms of the result of Game 1 and the impact on JR's reputation, the damage was done. The Cavaliers went on to get spanked in overtime, and after this point, is back to belt to ass all series long, with the Warriors outright sweeping the Cavaliers. JR played like absolute ass all series long, shooting 32% from the field, and after this slip up, honestly, this was basically the end of J.R. Smith's career. JR would play poorly the next season after LeBron's departure, scoring 7 a game on 34% from the field, and after losing his starting spot, JR was asked to leave the Cavaliers just 20 games into the season. The Cavs looked for trade options for literally a year in hopes of dumping off his money for a pick in contract swap type moves, but JR after his slip up went from a starting caliber player on an NBA Finals team to a guy that no team wanted anything to do with. I mean, J.R. Smith was declining at this time, and had this happened to a Knicks or Nuggets J.R. Smith, you can bet your ass he would have gotten another spot. But it's safe to say this moment may have ruined his reputation around the league and hurt his chances of being one of the few remaining veteran mentors in the NBA. Other than a brief stunt with the 2020 Lakers, in which he did win a ring, albeit being the guy who did no work in the class project, J.R. Smith's finals blunder was essentially the end of his career altogether. Now, this slip up was mean to shit, and it was funny for the most part. J.R. Smith is a very memed on guy altogether, but for the most part, people don't really hate JR. He's likely one of the bigger fan favorites in NBA history. But when he combined the non-stop joking with some legitimate hate, created a wave of attention that weighed very heavily on his shoulders and dragged him into a dark, dark world. I believe I've recovered from it, but I ain't gonna lie, bro. I used to dream about that. Like, I was in a depressed state, because I really thought, this is why I'm not in the league. I used to really think that, damn, after all these highlights I gave these people, you tell me I got talents, I got this, I got that, off of one play, now all of a sudden, I don't have talent no more. I'm not any good. It's hard to not feel bad for JR, with an uglier exit from the NBA than he would have liked. A lot of people seem to struggle to really find their purpose after taking away the one thing they've excelled at since they were children. And even though over the years, JR certainly did give us a show to watch like he said, and it's unfortunate that after years of playing at a relatively high level, this one slip up is going to be attached to his legacy forever. It's easy to feel bad for JR a bit here, which cannot be said about Andrea Bargnani, who is despised by every fan base who had to watch this guy suit up. Andrea Bargnani is basically a 7-foot Andrew Wiggins who never had a career revival on the Golden State Warriors, rather just basically buried his relevance and legacy into the ground once he was freed from the Toronto Raptors. Now, Bargnani was drafted first overall in the pretty below average 2006 draft class and is largely considered one of the biggest draft busts in NBA history, which is kinda true but kinda not depending on how you define the word. In his 3 best years, Bargnani averaged from 17 to 21 points per game on slightly below average efficiency. This dude was basically all talent talent, no effort, chucking bad shots on a shitty Raptors squad, relying solely on his shooting touch at 7 feet tall, while being a Charmin soft fucking baby. I mean, I'm sorry to anyone who had to watch this guy because I would have broken my TV 6 times over if this dude had came to my Timberwolves at any point. Despite his pretty incredible offensive versatility with good foot speed, a nice jump shot, and good footwork, this dude had a world of talents. I mean, he was the first overall pick for Christ's sake, but this is one of those guys whose selfishness and laziness not only killed his career, but murdered every team he was on. I mean, despite being a 7-footer with a frame that wasn't paper thin, he wasn't built like Chet or anything like that, and this guy still was allergic to getting rebounds. Despite playing over 30 minutes per game for much of his career, this guy only managed to grab 6 boards a game once in his career. The Raptors had basically given up on Bargnani by age 27 and shipped him to New York, who were desperate to make a splash after a 55-win season, who were willing to send over a very healthy return in Marcus Camby, Steve Novak, and Q Rich, as well as picks. But all this trade really did was completely impoverish the Knicks during the Carmelo era. Bargnani and Carmelo was such a terrible fit on the floor that they fell 18 wins down to 37 and 45, while their only blessing was having the anti-Bargnani in Tyson Chandler to clean up his mess. This dude at 7 feet tall was just doing cardio, grabbing 5 rebounds in 30 minutes. When asked why he clocked such poor rebounding numbers, Bargnani responded, "The game's called basketball, not rebound ball." When asked in a more serious way, Bargnani chalked up his rebounding woes to laziness. Literally, laziness. "I have the frame to compete on the glass, but sometimes I get lazy." I mean, we all knew this, but never in my life have I heard a player actually admit to it. The Andrea Bargnani saga in New York is basically summed up by one play against the Milwaukee Bucks that was effectively his last straw.
Corner, Anthony, one-on-one with Antetokounmpo, shoots over 2. Offensive rebound, Chandler to Bargnani.
What is he doing? What is he doing, folks? Why would he shoot the ball? Why?
Andrea Bargnani.
I have no idea why the hell this dude is pulling this shot up to with the shot clock off, but if this doesn't show you the selfishness of this dude, I don't know what will. This play basically marked the point that the Knicks wrote him off completely. After the shot, his minutes were cut from 31 to 22, while in the next season he would basically end his career trying to leap over somebody like he isn't Andrea Bargnani. I mean, you might think that I'm grilling this dude too hard, but everyone who had him saw it. The he could be cold effect kept him in the league for a while, and his shitty attitude and low IQ made him quite the hated player and teammate in the meantime. Now, Bargnani is just another afterthought of a first overall pick gone wrong, but Ben Simmons, on the other hand, is one of the weirdest case studies in the NBA. Now, this story is beaten to shit, so we'll keep this part short, but it is completely impossible to leave Ben Simmons off this list. In the 2021 NBA playoffs, the Philadelphia 76ers faced off against the young and hungry Atlanta Hawks in what was supposed to be a routine series for the top-seeded Sixers. Instead, it turned into one of the most humiliating collapses in franchise history. At the center of this disaster was Ben Simmons. His career-altering moment came in Game 7, a single possession that became the lasting image of his downfall. Going into the playoffs, the Eastern Conference had 3 true contenders: the Bucks, the Nets, and the Sixers. Philly finished as the 1 seed, and anything short of the conference finals would have been a massive disappointment. But as the series against Atlanta progressed, concerns about Simmons' confidence and offensive struggles became impossible to ignore. Even before Game 7, his hesitancy was glaring. He had been passive all series, scoring just 8 and 6 points in Game 5 and Game 6. His free throw struggles were especially brutal, as he missed 10 in Game 5 alone, contributing to a blown 20-point lead. When asked about his shooting woes, his response, "I think it's mental. I have no idea why my shooting dropped off, only fueled doubts about his ability to handle the pressure." Then came Game 7. While Joel Embiid also struggled, committing 8 turnovers, Simmons took the full brunt of the criticism after the play. Late in the fourth quarter, he had a wide-open dunk, but instead passed the ball to Matisse Thybulle, who was immediately fouled. The decision baffled everyone. It was the moment that defined his tenure in Philadelphia and ultimately ended it. After the loss, the backlash was immediate. Even his own teammates and coach Doc Rivers publicly questioned his ability to lead a winning team. It was a death blow to Simmons' standing in the organization. From that point on, his career unraveled. He skipped training camp, got suspended, and eventually sat out the entire following season, citing nagging back issues, though most believed it was more about his deteriorating mental states than his physical health. The Sixers fined him over $10 million for missed practices and games, making him the most fined player in NBA history. A mid-season trade to Brooklyn in 2022 was supposed to offer a fresh start, but injuries and confidence issues persisted. His production nosedived, and despite being just 27 years old, he no longer resembles an NBA caliber player. Chris Brickley really tried hitting us with the offseason workout videos again and said that this is back to the Rookie of the Year 3 times in a row prime Ben Simmons, before Simmons went out there and averaged 6 fucking points for the 3rd season in a row. I mean, I have no idea how much that back injury affected his play and how poorly that ending with the Sixers due to the pass heard around the world hurt his confidence and hindered his ability on the floor, but the combination of the two made for one of the worst fall-offs in NBA history. I'm sure people would be more than willing to give him some sympathy given how elite he was prior to the injury and how poorly the Sixers had handled it. I mean, they really threw his ass under the bus after that pass, but acting like a teenage girl at practice and refusing to shoot the ball after all of these years makes him quite the hard guy to root for. Making $6 million a year per point scored, Ben Simmons is out there crippling the economy. If you can't afford eggs in Brooklyn, blame Ben Simmons. And honestly, once his contract is up, I have no clue what the market for Ben Simmons is going to look like at all. Because ever since that play, Ben Simmons has really been a menace to the NBA. I mean, really, if this dude just learned to shoot the damn ball, all of his problems would mostly go away. But I guess that didn't go too well for Denzel Valentine either. Denzel Valentine is kind of a story of how staying in college when you're not quite ready for the NBA can be beneficial, because this dude went pretty far for a guy with his talent level. Denzel played 4 years. He improved very steadily from 5 games to close to 20 by his senior season. Denzel would go 14th overall in the 2016 NBA draft, mostly due to his ability to shoot the ball at 44% from deep. But really, this guy was just a volume scorer that didn't really pass or defend too well. Frankly, being a volume scorer isn't going to get you very far in the NBA when you have the talent level of, well, Denzel Valentine. This dude had a chance to be a good role player in the NBA just due to his shooting stroke, but really when at his best, this guy was putting up 10 a game on 41% shooting. He was never really NBA level, and one play will forever be tied to his name as the one that destroyed his career.
Butler pulls up, missed it badly there. Less than a minute to go.
No.
Oh my goodness, Valentine!
No.
Whoa,
No.
That is not the shot!
I mean, from Jimmy missing badly just for Denzel to miss the basket by 10 feet, this was the most comically timed, brain-dead moments I've ever seen in the NBA. Even the commentators couldn't help but to absolutely cook his ass for pulling a 30-foot pull-up jumper, and he really did deserve it. For the season, Denzel put up 6 a game, but after this was severely cut down on minutes, scoring just 4 a game on the off chance that he actually got into the game. Denzel played just 1 more year before his career was over, and really all he left us with was this 30-foot airball to remember him for. I mean, this kind of shit is why AAU needs to be banned forever. 5 years after he stated he wanted to win the MVP award and win Chicago a ring, this dude was having to explain why he just took a 30-footer that airballed by 6 feet, down 5 with 50 seconds left. I mean, apparently, Denzel felt that since he just smacked his last 3 balls, the right play was to walk down and shoot from the hash. Denzel was never really great just due to his play style. He could never really play a role in the NBA and was likely out of the door anyways, but this kind of late game mental lapse just writes you off as a low IQ player, as Valentine would rack up DNPs playing just 1 final year in the NBA. Denzel's bad shot wasn't exactly the cause of the death of his career, just more so the nail in the coffin. When talking about one bad game defining a legacy, John Starks may be the greatest example. I was still shitting my pants by the time John Starks was wrapping up his NBA career, but when you hear about his legacy, you get some mixed perceptions. From overrated to underrated to legitimate star to just role player, John Starks' legacy is a bit weird, but really, if he hadn't put together one of the biggest choke jobs in NBA history, things would have went a lot different. John Starks and the New York Knicks had a tough job throughout the 1990s, having lost to MJ's Bulls in the 1993 conference finals after having put together a crazy 60-win season. These Knicks were deep, they were talented, and they were hard-nosed as hell. Really, they were perfect for 1990s basketball. So when Michael Jordan would leave the NBA to go play baseball and gamble, this opened the door for a few fringe contenders to now become real threats. threats, and very few benefited as much as the New York Knicks. John Starks had broken out a bit in the 1994 season, earning his first and only All-Star selection with 19 points per game as a second option behind Patrick Ewing. At 57 and 25 this season in an MJ-less league, the Knicks' 1994 campaign was their best chance at a championship since the 1970s, and even still, it certainly wasn't easy, but after taking down Pippen's Bulls in 7, and Reggie Miller's Pacers in 7 as well, believe it or not, but the Madison Square Garden was actually home to an NBA Finals. The stage was set for a duel between two of the best bigs that the game has ever seen, in Patrick Ewing and Hakeem Olajuwon, but throughout 6 games, John Starks was dropping 19 a game, which was massive for a series in which neither team ever scored over 100 points. Throughout games 4, 5, and 6, Starks had put up double-digit fourth quarters, resulting in a turnaround from a 2-1 deficit, to just narrowly failing to put away the Rockets in Game 6, which of course meant that one game would decide the fate of both teams and the entirety of the 1994 season. Now, championships were certainly extremely hard to come by throughout the Bulls' prime, which left plenty of all-time greats ringless, and these two teams were looking to capitalize on the opportunity in front of them. And on June 22nd, 1994, we would see one of the wildest Game 7 choke jobs in NBA history. With the stage set in Houston, Texas, the show was underway. The Knicks coach had all the confidence in the world in not only his Knicks, but John Starks in particular. When talking to his friend, he would utter a sentence that will forever live on in infamy before game time. Well, old buddy, I know at least 3 people who are going to show up tonight. You, me, and John. Well, John came out a bit slow, but in fairness, the rest of the team, as well as the other team, were a bit sloppy as well. Defensive intensity mixed with offensive sloppiness resulted in a pretty low-scoring half of basketball with a tight 45-43 finish. John Starks had battled a bit of foul trouble throughout the half and had struggled to take the lid off the basket, shooting just 1 for 5 from the field with a pair of free throws. Now, Starks was in his head a bit. He couldn't sleep the nights prior. He couldn't forget that one shot that was tipped by Olajuwon at the end of Game 6 that could have won them a championship, and rather than clearing his head over the shaky half in the locker room, Starks sat and soaked up the negative thoughts and pressures into a downward spiral that would lead to his worst half of basketball that he's ever played. Starks went out there and tried casting up a 3-ball from the corner. Long. Okay. Well, Starks can score the ball pretty well from all over the floor. Next, Starks is taking the ball to the rim. Oh, right. Hakeem Olajuwon is the best shot blocker ever. Well, they have Ewing to score the rock. John Starks can play as well defensively and feed hotter hands. Well, shit. His matchup Vernon Maxwell is torching this dude with the hottest hand on the floor. With the 63-60 finish to the third quarter, this thing was close, and really the bad shooting night from John Starks was the only thing that was keeping the game close. But as we saw the past 3 games, fourth quarter Starks was the best player on the floor. But sadly, this wasn't any other night. Starks starts the quarter getting to the stripe, knocking down a pair of free throws, and started to strike some fear in Houston fans who had seen Starks perform all series long. When it appeared that Starks may have started to get some momentum on his side, Starks airballs a 3-ball so fucking bad that it took all of the potential confidence that he had. I mean, this was like a yard away from the basket. Next play, John Starks open 3-ball, rims out. Another off-ball screen, John Starks open 3-ball, clink. Players on the other team went as far to say he was shooting a medicine ball, and it only got worse. John Starks transition 3-ball. Nope, long rebound and easy bucket the other way. 1 for 12 and 0 for 7 from 3. John Starks is playing piss poor to where even the announcers are begging him to stop shooting. But with 5 minutes to go, Pat Riley let his guard shoot through the slump. Starks went on to miss another 3-ball. Holy hell, he was in his head so bad. He was passing up open shots before finally, after an offensive rebound, Starks got his second field goal of the night. The lid is open, right? Well, after a 5th foul and Maxwell smacking another 3-ball in his face, Starks clinked 1, 2, 3 more 3-balls before the Rockets closed out the game 84-90. Holy hell, this is one of the worst choke jobs in pro sports. I feel bad that this one poor game is so legacy defining, but in a 6-point game that decided his season, Starks shot 2 for 18 and 0 for 11 from 3. This really did heavily influence the result of the season. Starks was supposed to be the king of the fourth quarter, and now is more of the poster child for a late game choke job. Starks' career as a star level player, or even a starter in the league, quickly diminished, as the Knicks would never reach this level again with Ewing and Starks. And John's production would very swiftly and consistently decline despite being just 28 years old. John Starks' story is really the worst horror movie for any professional athlete, but in the very next season, Nick Anderson's infamous free throws may have been even worse. On June 7th, 1995, Nick Anderson's NBA career took a devastating turn. It was Game 1 of the NBA Finals, and his Orlando Magic were on the brink of securing a crucial victory over the Houston Rockets. With 8.5 seconds left and a 3-point lead, Anderson stepped to the free throw line. One make would all but seal the game. Instead, one moment would kill the Magic's momentum and his confidence forever. For that night, Nick Anderson was the heart of the Orlando Magic. A standout at the University of Illinois, he dominated in his 2 college seasons, averaging 18 points and 7.9 rebounds as a sophomore, before declaring for the 1989 NBA Draft. The Magic, as an expansion team at the time, made Anderson their first ever draft pick, selecting him 11th overall. As a rookie, he showed promise, averaging 11.5 a game, and over the next few seasons, his numbers surged to nearly 20 a game, making him a key figure in the franchise's rise. The additions of Shaq and Penny Hardaway elevated the team to championship contention, but Anderson remained a foundational piece. The 1995 NBA Finals was supposed to be Orlando's arrival on the big stage. In Game 1, they held a commanding 20-point lead before Houston clawed back. Still, with 8.5 seconds remaining and a 110-107 lead, Anderson had a chance to close the door. His first free throw fell short. The Rockets had life. His second free throw missed again, but he grabbed his own rebound and was fouled once more, another opportunity to redeem himself. The third attempt clanked off the back of the rim, the fourth, another miss. The Rockets won 120-118, stealing the game. In all of the Magic's confidence, they had never recovered, getting swept 4-0. Before those misses, Anderson was a respectable 70% free throw shooter, but after that game, his confidence was wrecked. His struggles at the line worsened, bottoming out at an abysmal 40% from 3 during the 96-97 season. I've been in that situation several times, but tonight, I just didn't have it. Why now? I just missed the free throws. Orlando head coach Brian Hill later admitted that Game 1 broke the team mentally. Anderson himself acknowledged how much it haunted him. I let it get to me mentally. I lost that dog in me. The dog was there, but there was no bite. Despite playing 13 seasons in the NBA and finishing as Orlando's all-time leading scorer at the time, Anderson's legacy is forever tied to that one game. His career, which had been on an upward trajectory, never fully recovered. That night, the Orlando Magic lost more than just the game, and for Nick Anderson, those 4 free throws changed everything. Make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 100K by the end of the year. It would really help me a lot. And while you're here, why don't you find out about the worst MVP seasons in NBA history?